have so much talent and potential, but lately they've been failing to use it. Instead of shooting for the stars, they just settle on being okay. That's not necessarily an awful thing, but in an era where animation is evolving, it's a shame to see the biggest studio in the world doing the bare minimum.
Welp, in November of 2022, I went to the movie theater to watch the latest film from Walt Disney Animation Studios' Strange World. The movie was not very good, and further solidified a worrisome feeling I had had for a while at that point. The feeling that this studio was entering into a new era, and not a good one. Starting in 2018, the studio began pumping out bad and mediocre movies one after another, with the exception of Encanto. Ralph Breaks the Internet, Frozen 2, Raya and the Last Dragon, and the aforementioned Strange World were all underdeveloped and lacking in substance, especially compared to their contemporaries. So with that, I decided it was finally time to revive an old video concept and talk about the fall-off of the studio and the similar problems their recent non-Encanto movies had all shared. To my surprise, that video went over surprisingly well, with more people latching onto the criticisms I gave in it, and the sinking ship status of the studio. But back then, a lot of commenters brought up a certain project from the studio that appeared as a faint glimmer of hope for them: Wish. Announced a few months earlier at D23, this new movie was to act as a grand centennial celebration for the company and studio, and be a throwback to Disney classics of the past, including a stylized watercolor look and a villain who was one of the most formidable foes in Disney history. This seemed to grab the attention of a lot of people, but I remained a little skeptical. The people who just made these do not exactly have my blind trust when it comes to making quality movies. But at least it seemed like something that was gonna be at least a little different and promising. Maybe, just maybe, they have something special in store with this one. I mean, come on, this can be a good movie, right? It can't be that bad, it's that bad. Wish is ass. And I'm not just saying that it's merely lacking compared to the better works of the prestigious studio that made it. No, it's bad. I have legitimately seen Vanguard movies that are better than this. I have seen Alpha and Omega sequels that are better than this. You know what? The Flash might have actually been a more competent and less embarrassing failure of a movie than this was. I think the best way I can describe it is that Wish is everything I was worried Encanto was gonna be. Given how the studio was doing around this time, I thought this movie was just gonna be plain, safe, self-congratulatory, and I don't know, that this thing would talk and be incredibly annoying. Fortunately, I was proven wrong, and it actually had merits and was able to stand on its own as a good movie. But Wish? Absolutely not. And you know what's crazier? I don't seem to be the only one who thinks that. Like, even with the studio sort of falling off in quality, they still managed to get solid enough critic reviews. And I get that Rotten Tomatoes isn't always reliable, but when the score drop-off is this big and this noticeable, something is wrong. And people used to laugh when I said that the studio was falling off their game.
Ha! Guess who's the laugher now? Me! I'm the laugher! I'm the laughingest laugher that ever laughed! Ha!
But upon further reflection, I think I can sum up most of what Wish does wrong into one simple point. Wish doesn't commit. Like, it doesn't feel like this movie can confidently execute on anything it initially wanted to do, and ends up all the worse because of it. That was kind of a problem with the other movies too, but it more so felt like it was merely because of the messy productions a lot of those went through. Wish still shares the same problems as those others, and it's blatantly obvious that it also had a very troubled production. But more than anything, this movie emanates a true sense of cowardice. Everything from the animation to the writing to the songs gives off the impression that the people behind this movie were afraid to commit to whatever vision of this movie there was because of everything the corporate higher-ups at the studio have imposed upon them. And the result of that is this, a movie that feels like the grand culmination of every bad step this studio and its father company have taken throughout the past few years. So let's take a closer look at this piece of garbage and see why it does so many things wrong, yet the one thing Wish doesn't do is commit. This should be fun. I think it's pretty undeniable to say that an essential step in getting your audience invested in a work of fiction is to get them wrapped up in a character. The writing is obviously an important aspect of this, but the characters themselves are more or less the core of every story in existence. You need somewhere to channel themes and emotions and conflicts, and making those into living souls is where a lot of the magic of storytelling comes from. But in order for this process to work, we need to gain an understanding of this character and what they're about beyond the basics. If done right, the base of your film already works regardless of everything else. If not done at all, then it doesn't matter who, why, and what your characters are, the audience can attach themselves to them, thus making everything surrounding them fall to pieces. Case in point. I mentioned in the original Disney animation video that these movies all shared an issue of shoving in way too many characters while only focusing on and providing concrete perfects to a very select few. Another issue I mentioned was how these movies are so fast-paced and focused on moving the plot forward that they don't give time for anything involving the story or characters to sink in or feel satisfying. Both of these issues have been taken to a whole new level here. Wish has a grand total of 13 characters that the movie expects you to be invested in or care about in some capacity. Do you want to know how many are given actual stuff to do during the entirety of the movie? 2. Do you want to know how many of those 2 are well written?
Settle!
This movie greatly suffers from the issue of it just expecting you to care about these characters without wanting to devote the time or effort into giving the audience some incentive as to why they should. It will just bring up something through really terrible dialogue that basically just amounts to, this is the reason why you should care about this person, and then just swiftly move on to other pointless shit. You can't just tell people to get invested in your characters because the movie requires it. You're not the boss of me. You actually need to dedicate time into getting the viewer acquainted with these people, as well as exploring what their dreams and aspirations are. Gee, you'd think that be important for a movie called Wish. But the movie doesn't do this, and if I have no reason to care about anybody at all, then why even bother? Okay, so the movie opens up with some bland narration that spoon feeds the audience information, and then we meet our main character, Asha. Prior to this movie coming out, there was a pretty heated discussion surrounding Asha being marked as an adorkable protagonist, thanks to these hilarious jokes that the trailer was just oh so proud to highlight.
Is my mouth drooping? I feel like it's drooping.
A lot of people have said that Disney has sort of run this trope into the ground over the past decade. I didn't give it much thought since there are bigger constantly occurring problems in these movies, but I do see the argument. I think audiences are sort of getting bored of the same type of heroine again and again, and Asha is the prime example of this character type being done incorrectly. She has pretty much nothing else to define her outside of that. And even then, it's not like the movie leans heavily into or commits to her adorkable personality. It's just there for cheap laughs and basically nothing else. So that doesn't really leave Asha with much left. I like Ariana DeBose and her vocal performance well enough, but it doesn't really add any flair or personality to her overall. She's just the main character of Wish 2023. Here, let's look on the Disney Wiki. Maybe they have something. Asha is an energetic, passionate girl who is very proud of her kingdom's history and traditions. Asha is a very compassionate and selfless girl who cares deeply about her friends, family, and to her entire community. All this is really telling me is that Asha is nice and cares about people. Yeah, I guess that makes her likable on the surface level, but what else is there to her? Why is she so caring? What does she herself want? What are her struggles and character flaws outside of being adorkable? Dislikes include unfairness, betrayal, her loved ones in danger, and potty humor. Was this movie made specifically for 4-year-olds?
Yes.
This is kind of the worst type of character you can have, since her entire personality is essentially tied to being nice and helping others, leaving nothing for herself. She's just a blank slate who's there to fill the obligatory spot for a new Disney princess. Now with that said, there is still potential with this type of character. Since she's so dedicated to the desires of others, maybe she neglects herself and what she truly wants deep down, needing to grow and realize her own internal worth and how she's also worthy of that same happiness. Oh wait, I forgot. That requires having nuance in your stories and respecting your audience enough to the point where you think they can handle a character arc. Instead, Asha is just nice and has basically no wish tied to her own character because she barely has one. Well, I guess we need something to give the audience the illusion of investment, so the movie establishes Asha has a grandfather who is turning 100 years old. Do you get it? And Asha really wants the king to grant his wish, which is to create something to inspire the next generation. But then the king doesn't grant the wish, and they're very sad. That's, That's it. This is supposed to be the defining aspect of the story that makes us sympathize with Asha and is what drives her to go against the king and get back the wishes. But I don't care. I don't think anybody can care. This plot point doesn't even revolve around Asha herself and what little characteristics she has. It's more so about the grandfather. This would be fine if the grandfather didn't have even less character and fewer reasons to care about him than his granddaughter somehow. We established that he has a wish and then he's just kinda there. He doesn't really do anything to further the story in any way. Nothing he says is particularly relevant or interesting. We're just supposed to care about him and if he's gonna get his wish or not because he's old, I guess? Why should I care about that? Also, I'm supposed to believe this man is 100 years old? Really? He barely has any wrinkles or indications of his extremely old age outside of white hair. For somebody who's a century old to look this healthy, this must be a perfect society where people managed to find a cure for aging a long time ago. Seems like the king is doing a pretty good job, TBH. If you really wanted us to care deeply about this character, play up his age more. Make it apparent to the audience and the characters that he believes this may be his last chance to have his wish granted before passing. Or you can showcase the life he's lived and why he's actually worthy of having his wish be granted. Even 8 crazy knights managed to do that. But this movie doesn't because I guess that's just too complex for it. As is, I do not care about this character since we are given no reason why he deserves his already incredibly vague wish that has no emotional weight behind it. Nor does he have any characteristics of his own. Oh, wait, stop. Sorry, my bad, I found something.
Asha, let's bake a cake. Oh, no.
But I love cake.
He likes cake. Wow, he's such a well-written and compelling character, and this is a well-written and compelling movie. So much so that I take back everything I said. 8 out of 10. Cake, baby! The movie eventually realizes nobody cares about this man, and he provides basically nothing for Asha's character. So then they decide, how about we tie Asha's niceness and caring personality back to her dad? A character who doesn't even appear in this movie at all. There's no real flashbacks or information about him or anything. We are just told that Asha had a father who existed and told her to look up at the stars, I guess. You know, if the remake of Beauty and the Beast taught me anything, it's that you shouldn't bother adding in or exploring parent characters who don't add anything to the movie's core and are just there because character only has one featured parent. Oh yeah, and Asha's mom just exists. She barely has any lines whatsoever, yet the movie expects us to care about her and her wish, I think. Look, we have like 20 other characters to get to, so it's not worth spending time on her. So Asha makes a wish upon a star and it ends up coming down from the sky. Do you want to know this thing's name? It perfectly encapsulates the amount of wondrous creativity this movie has. I didn't even include this guy in the character count because what does it even add? I like the idea of making the iconic wishing star in classic Disney movies an actual character. That's cute. But the problem is that this thing isn't a character. It's just a marketable plushie that has vague magical powers and only exists to give Asha motivation, I guess? Like, Star doesn't really do anything substantial in this movie's story. It factors nothing into Asha getting her family's wishes back or rising up against Magnifico. She already wanted to stop him prior to Star coming down. Then it just sort of floats around her as a novelty for most of the runtime. I mean, it's cute, I guess, but that's really the most I can say. It feels like they prioritized making this thing as marketable as possible so they can slap its face everywhere and get people to the theater over having an actual vision for the purpose it's supposed to serve in the actual film. Well, actually, they did have a vision for Star. Initially, this thing was supposed to be an eccentric shapeshifter fan named Starboy. Supposedly, this character was meant to be Asha's love interest and would romantically inspire her and whatnot. That's not confirmed, but I imagine it was a direction they considered going in. If so, I mean, that's something. It would make the star an actual character instead of a toy advertisement, its purpose would be more clear in the narrative, and it would give Asha someone to work off of and clash ideals with. But no, instead Starboy was axed and made into this thing who does not have a clear purpose. I don't get it. Why would you think it's a good idea to completely throw a seemingly crucial part of your story and main character's journey in the garbage? Is it because the studio has been against making romantic pairings in their movies lately for some reason? I dislike lame romantic subplots as much as the next guy, and I understand not every movie needs one, but your movie and your main character need to have something. Kids can't handle it. Even your sister studio knows that. Yeah, but anyways, this yellow blob is just kind of there, and from where I'm standing, it was definitely the wrong decision to sand down a potentially interesting idea and an actual character into this. Oh boy, now it's time to run through every character that falls into the category of pointless comic relief side character. Yay! Asha has 7 friends who are based on the 7 dwarves, and that's their character. Let me just repeat that. 7. It's like they had 2 or 3 companions for Asha originally, but then the executive swooped in and told them to add in 5 more. It just feels so uninspired and tacked on for a cheap reference, and none of them are particularly memorable or special as characters on their own. I guess I like Gabo because his attitude closely mirrors mine while watching this. This was the only time me or anybody else audibly laughed in my screening.
I made a wish. On a star.
What are you, 5?
You're not busy. You're 5.
But the other 6 are just so dull. They don't feel like they have distinct characteristics like the characters they're based on. They don't play them up enough. Like Gabo is grumpy and this guy sneezes, I guess, but what do the others do? Stand around and say 2 lines each? Not a single one of them adds anything substantial to this movie. And yes, I do mean it when I say not a single one. They do attempt to give one of them some sort of actual role in the story beyond the Asha support group. This is Simon. He has the most boring name and design out of any character in this movie. His conflict is that he wished to become a knight, but once he gave that wish to the king, he became just sort of tired, I guess. But then later, Simon turns Asha in to get the deal of a lifetime and become a knight. Oh no, betrayal. Then Simon just sort of realizes he was wrong off screen and everyone forgives him. The end. I kid you not, this guy has a grand total of 6 lines prior to his betrayal. 6. I completely forgot he existed whenever he wasn't on screen, and then the movie pretends he's important in the final act. I don't even know what to say. This is just an objectively nothing story arc that I would not be surprised if they threw it in at the last minute. Here's an idea. If a story arc is going to be completely pointless and irrelevant for most of the movie, then just don't bother. Speaking of pointless... I hate this thing, plain and simple. I don't even think I've seen the 6 Wish fans there are say they actually like him. Even more blatantly than Star, it's so painfully obvious that they added him for marketing so you can think he's cute and so he can make that smug-ass face on the poster. I like Alan Tudyk, he's undeniably a super talented voice actor, but the voice they make him put on for this thing is so annoying and tiring to listen to after about, I don't know, 10 seconds. Paired with that, nothing he says is remotely funny or cute or surprising.
I saw this one YouTuber say that it's like Joss Whedon dialogue repackaged for 7-year-olds, and like, yeah, that's right on the money.
I meant to do that. I'm talking. I am talking. Who knew my voice would be this low?
You shut the fuck up! You shut the fuck.
What's worse is that he doesn't add a single thing to this movie's plot. No, I'm dead serious. He does not do anything outside of tagging along and talking. A lot. I mean, he does scratch his ass against a wall to reveal a secret room or something. That justifies his existence. I cannot stress enough how much I absolutely loathe this thing. It's a stupid, pointless side character in a movie chock full of them. Why did you waste time writing lines for this thing but not Simon? Why did you waste time putting him in the movie at all?
I'm Valentino. I'm talking. I'm talking.
Oh, that's why. If you're going to have such a giant cast, can you at least have each character contribute, like, one thing? That would at least be a band-aid on this incredibly flat cast of cardboard cutouts, most of whom offer nothing or were revamped to offer nothing. Oh, come on, there's gotta be someone I'm missing here, though. Who could the writers have possibly poured all of their efforts into?
Take a look at this.
Okay, I will try to listen and stay calm.
Keep the name. I'm not.
Everybody likes Disney villains. I mean, they are the most iconic parts of most of the classic movies, and they built up quite a stellar lineup of them throughout their history. Scar, Ursula, Gaston, Grover Fishoder, the list goes on. But somewhere along the way, Disney just stopped giving us these traditional villains entirely. Telling stories without a concrete antagonist is cool and interesting too, just so long as you don't get attached to one storytelling trope and then keep repeating yourself and get worse at executing it every time. But I can agree that it is disappointing to see such a heavy departure from what we once had. And with the recent Disney titles lacking in any sort of substance, I think people were really starting to long for the days of classic villains that always threw in some spice to the mix. And I guess Disney heard us. When Wish was first being marketed, Disney made sure to highlight the fact that it featured their first real villain in forever. It was all people were talking about when we started getting images of this movie, and its formidable foe, King Magnifico. I think it's clear that this was the main selling point for a lot of people. So did they deliver?
No.
But I will say this. I love King Magnifico. He is undoubtedly my favorite character in this movie, and the only one that I can actually say I really like in some form. I think Chris Pine fits him really well, and he's definitely making the most out of this role. And I gotta say, he has a surprisingly good singing voice, adding to the villain song of all time, which we'll get to. Look at this sleazy man. Look at his smug grins that put the stupid goat to shame. Look at his little dances. Ooh, I love it. Basically, Magnifico is the only aspect of this movie that is somewhat fun. But with all that said, most of my enjoyment of King Magnifico boils down to two very shallow factors on my part. Number one, well, I mean, look, he's not Howl, but given the movie I'm watching, I guess I'll take whatever mild positive I can get.
Would you say you're a typical example of your sex?
I am above average.
And number two, he is fun in a very ironic sense. There's just a certain charm in how badly this character is handled that isn't present anywhere else in the movie. Because yeah, they fumble the bag hard with him. There's a ton of ideas for Magnifico both within and outside of the movie, and I like a lot of them in a vacuum. But take a wild guess what the problem is. When analyzing King Magnifico, it feels like the script for his scenes is one of those games where a different writer has to follow up the previous one while not knowing what they wrote, resulting in 10,000 different visions for this character that never ended up getting ironed out. But I think I've managed to narrow it down to 3 characters that King Magnifico switches between throughout the movie. Not transitions, switches. We have compassionate Magnifico with a small hidden layer of controlling tyrant. Then we have the charismatic Magnifico who's obsessed with himself and thinks everyone else should love him. And finally, we have unapologetically vicious Magnifico who is out for blood and shows no remorse or care for anyone. This meme sums it up thusly. On their own, I think any one of these could make for a really fun or really compelling villain that fits into the themes the movie is trying to go for. There's no real right answer as to which one you should choose, but there is certainly a wrong answer.
All of them!
The writers of Wish cannot make up their minds on what they want King Magnifico to be. Or more accurately, the executives cannot make up their minds on what they want King Magnifico to be. Oh, we'll give people the new sinister Disney villain they've been asking for, but we can't make him too scary because that'll scare the kiddies, but we can't make him too complex either because that will require time and effort and we need to focus on the goat. So even though I like all 3 versions of Magnifico, the way they're all haphazardly stapled together and put into this movie's non-existent story really prevents me from actually calling him a good villain. So towards the beginning of the movie, Asha comes in for a job interview and acts all adorkable, haha funny. This is where we meet Magnifico, who is in his falsely nice and caring persona. He's very calm with Asha, he doesn't get annoyed at her tomfoolery. He even opens up to her about his backstory and the reason he built this city in the first place. His family was murdered and his homeland was destroyed, and he didn't want anyone else to live through the pain that he did. So this guy seems pretty genuine and likable. We have reason to feel for him, and he feels like an actual person with a traumatic past and actual motivations. Then after opening up, he takes Asha into his glass ball emporium where he keeps the wishes of its citizens. The two then sing a very awkward song, which we're gonna get to. Good lord, how long is this video? Afterwards, Asha expresses how she wants her grandfather's wish to be granted because that's her only character trait, and she asks Magnifico to make it happen. Grandpa's wish is that he wants to make something that will inspire the people of Rosas, and the king thinks this is too vague and that it might turn out negatively for the kingdom. And I'm just thinking, okay, yeah, this is a bit silly on his part, but it does make sense why Magnifico is so skeptical given what he's been through and how he wouldn't want to take chances on putting anyone in harm's way. This is an interesting conflict for what is shaping up to be an interesting character, and it's a pretty solid introductory scene, all things considered. At least that's what I would be saying if the movie didn't decide to throw everything established in the scene in the garbage. That night, Starman comes down from the sky and Magnifico senses the force or something and feels threatened. So the next day, he calls the kingdom to an assembly and tries to find out who's responsible. Even though he should have figured out that it probably has something to do with the girl who was complaining to him yesterday and is mysteriously not present at this assembly, but I digress. So everyone starts asking him questions about how he handles the wishes and why he rarely grants them. Then they start begging him for another wish ceremony even though they just had one yesterday, and he gets pissed. Now, this seems pretty in line with what we saw in Magnifico's first scene. He cares about these people and their safety, but he has a hidden sense of anger stemming from how people don't see eye to eye with him. But then all of that is flushed away in the very next scene where he starts singing his signature villain song. Not only is this the least intimidating and dopiest villain song ever written, but it straight up does not fit with what has been established for his character thus far. All of a sudden, the more calm and collected Magnifico Magnifico with the hidden layer of spite has turned into petty, self-absorbed pretty boy who loves himself and nothing else. I mean, just listen to these lyrics.
I can't help it if mirrors love my face. You're cute and strong and bold and brave. Hey, keep the name I'm magnificent.
In the span of literally 2 seconds, he has switched character types entirely. It would be more in line with what the previous scene established if the song leaned more into its title and focused on how Magnifico doesn't feel like he's respected or understood by his people. But if that was the song's intention, it gets drowned out by the upbeat melody and verse lyrics that just amount to Magnifico is love, Magnifico is life, I'm hot. These feel like two completely different characters, and as a result, I can't take either of them seriously. And as if that wasn't bad enough, they then bring in character type number 3 of super evil Magnifico who has no heart at all. Towards the end of the song, he starts yelling and murdering wooden dolls. Paired with the shift in color palette, they're clearly trying to make him look more horrifyingly sinister. But it doesn't work because it also doesn't fit with this stupid ass song or his other two personalities. Sure, he had a hint of anger underneath the surface when we first saw him, but it wasn't to this level, nor did anything significant happen to escalate it to said level. From this point forward, Magnifico is just sort of stuck in his ultra evil phase with hints of the egotistical one. He starts fooling around with magic and destroying the wishes of some NPCs, even though it's clear he was at least protecting them before. But now he's just destroying them without remorse for some reason, I guess. Then he goes insane and uses green fart magic to chain people to the ground so he can... Actually, that's kind of it. What was his plan in doing this exactly? Hey, remember when this guy was a sympathetic character who had a backstory and emotional trauma? These people clearly don't, considering he's now presented as an irredeemable monster with no remorse for anybody, including his own wife. You can't have this singular character be 20 different types of villains. Well, actually, that's not exactly true. I think some of the most compelling antagonists in fiction are the ones who change over time and let their villainous motivations consume them and make them into something else entirely. To showcase what they could have and maybe even should have done with Magnifico, let's take a look at the High Evolutionary from Guardians 3. At the beginning, he takes on the role of the more ominous bad guy, who we don't know much about, but we can tell means business just through the directing and the manner he's betrayed in both on-screen and off. He acts calm and collected, but he displays a sense of immense anger to those around him whenever he can't get his way. Reminds me of someone else. He feels like a human being, one with clearly sinister ambitions, but a human being with complex emotions nonetheless. And throughout the movie, we see that anger peak through more and more, leading up to the climax where the Guardians trying to stop him drives him off a cliff. His desire to play God and be in control of what he considers perfect being thwarted has made him go insane, to the point where even the people who stuck by him realize he's in the wrong. It's satisfying to see a villain get so absorbed in their villainy and then getting stopped at their most vicious state. High Evolutionary is a lot more blatantly evil from the start than Magnifico is, but I think a similar spiral when Magnifico gets so caught up in maintaining power above his people could definitely work. But instead of having that spiral, Magnifico's character changes on a dime. The thing that drives him into ego mode is just these people asking him a few questions about their wishes. I mean, yeah, they're annoying and greedy, but I don't think this would be enough to completely snap this pretty composed guy. And it's never implied this is a recurring issue for him, so I can't logically bring myself to believe this one instance would essentially cause him to turn on his entire kingdom. And I especially don't believe that it would cause him to turn into a psychopath murderer. The movie says that he's being possessed by dark magic or something due to this book that's mentioned in like 2 scenes. But chalking his permanent evil state that he never turns back from up to being possessed by a book is just lazy and boring. I don't understand why they bothered giving him a backstory and sympathetic character traits if they were just gonna suddenly turn him into an unforgiving maniac that we're supposed to be rooting against. In fact, it really rubs me the wrong way how the movie presents this aspect. Magnifico isn't allowed to properly deal with his trauma and difficult past, the trauma that makes him so hesitant to grant these wishes and so desperate to protect the citizens in the first place. But instead of being allowed to grow from that, the movie turns him into a maniac with no soul. It honestly kind of sends a bad message about personal wounds and letting them define you. Sure, some of the stuff Magnifico was doing might have been wrong, but they ultimately stemmed from a personal worry. It's obviously bad how Magnifico lets his past consume him, but the movie doesn't explore why that was ultimately harmful to him and leading him down the wrong path. Rather, he's made evil immediately and no longer acts human from that point on. It's not telling the audience how and how not to process personal trauma. Instead, it gives off the vibe that it's something you're stuck with whether you like it or not. When the one and only character in your movie who has a backstory and has suffered loss before is made into the unsympathetic bad guy because of that loss, that's honestly really messed up. I don't want to say they should have redeemed Magnifico after doing all this bad stuff, because we all know how that would have gone. But rather, let me propose a rewrite. Have Magnifico alongside somebody else who has the same evil intentions as him, and lean into their evilness a bit more at the start. I think the choice for the secondary villain is pretty obvious. Amaya is Magnifico's partner, so the two share the same controlling, oppressive nature and hidden layer of darkness. Only difference is Magnifico's inner darkness developed as a result of his trauma, eventually making him lose sight of what's right and wrong, whereas Amaya is just pure evil and loves her honeyboo, even though he's mine. Then over the second half of the movie, have Magnifico grow to realize the error of his ways and how what he's been doing hasn't been helping him solve the problems he faced. Meanwhile, Amaya remains evil and tries to convince him what they're doing is right. But Magnifico realizes she's wrong and eventually teams up with the protagonist to help take her down. This way, you can make use of Magnifico's backstory and give him a proper character arc while also getting some of that maniacal Disney villain goodness. As a matter of fact, Magnifico and Amaya were originally both envisioned as evil. I'm gonna be honest, the idea of a Disney villain power couple goes hard as hell, but they didn't end up doing either that or something along the lines of my idea. Instead, Amaya is a completely separate character from Magnifico entirely. The two have no dynamic or chemistry, even though they are supposed to be a married couple, mind you. When Magnifico turns evil, Amaya starts to show mild concern. By the way, this movie has some of the worst dialogue I have ever heard in a professional feature film.
The queen looks scared.
Okay, looks like he's sad.
So then in the span of an hour, she decides to turn on her husband, who she has spent like 20 years with, and joins the good guys. What a great, well-developed character arc for such a deep and complex character. Instead of an interesting dynamic that would have brought something new to the table, they settled on a blank slate in her one-dimensionally evil hot husband. Instead of incorporating his backstory or a logical character motivation into a spiral where he becomes a madman, he becomes one over the course of 2 seconds for no reason. Instead of sending some kind of message about the damage of personal trauma and how it should be handled, they decide to take a dump on his entire backstory by pretending it doesn't exist and removing his conscience entirely for the sake of making him evil. All that hype for a long-awaited new Disney villain, and sure, we do get a fun and epic as shit character, but one severely lacking in the depth the movie needed him to have. To put it simply, it just doesn't feel right. It feels half-assed and undercooked. Speaking of which... So one of the biggest talking points when it comes to this movie is its animation style. I have seen so many people rag on this movie for looking ugly, and if I can be honest, I think that's a bit much. I'm a guy who watches terrible animated movies all the time. I practically have a PhD in cheap animated filmology. So I've seen plenty of movies with actually terrible animation that's borderline unfinished or hurts my cornea to look at for 90 minutes straight. I can confidently say Wish is not on that level. The animation in this movie is... fine. They are graphics that meet the requirement of being watchable and perfectly acceptable. I think it's an exaggeration to say this movie is downright ugly in the same vein as something like Fly Me to the Moon 2008.
Graphics?
However, don't get used to me defending it because all of this comes with a but. While on the surface, Wish's animation manages to get the job done competently enough, is that really an accomplishment? Yeah, it manages to stay above the absolute bare minimum, but that's not impressive at all for a movie from the most famous animation studio of all time under the biggest media conglomerate in the world. Not to mention being made on a budget of up to $200 million. I'll get into this later, but a movie of this size absolutely does not deserve to be complimented for managing to stay above the lowest of the low, especially considering this movie really wants credit for incorporating a style it doesn't even want to commit to. You know how Disney always shoehorns in lame queer characters that can easily be edited out for foreign countries into their movies and then acts all progressive and supportive for doing the bare minimum? Yeah, this is basically the animation equivalent of that. As you may know, in recent years, American animation has kind of been going through a renaissance in terms of movies with super creative visual styles. Into the Spider-Verse was the first movie to go insane with this stylization, and once that movie exploded, it was inevitable that other studios would want to follow suit. And it's been a treat to be an animation fan following all these releases the past few years. It feels like we're entering a new era with a plethora of artists who want to take the medium to new heights. But during this era, there was one studio that refused to get with the time and evolve their style after it had worn its appeal thin. Okay, maybe more than one, but you get the idea. Don't get me wrong, the animation in these movies is by no means bad. A lot of them from this and last decade look exceptionally gorgeous to this day. But it was clear they had found a style that worked for them and then never looked back, and it was starting to get old. Taking time to animate every particle of air just isn't exciting anymore. People want to see innovative visuals that take advantage of the new technology and its creative opportunities. We want new styles, we want new character designs. I mean, I guess they gave us that with Strange World. They made a few characters' noses bigger. That's something. It was clear Disney was falling behind the times because they were just too scared to invest in something new. Then Wish was announced with the promise of an avant-garde animation style that would combine Disney's CGI with their classic watercolor animation. Finally, they're doing something new. We've been waiting forever. I can't wait to see what it looks like.
Oh, well, you wanted Disney to change their style, so no complaining, doy. If this was DreamWorks or Sony, you would be praising it, durr.
First of all, shut up. Second of all, no. And third of all, having a style that's even the slightest bit unique doesn't mean you can rack up automatic credit. Food Fight certainly has unique looking animation, but I'm not giving it extra points for that. As I've said in the past, a visual style inherently means very little if it isn't working hand in hand with the narrative, or if the people making the movie don't go all the way with it, or if it just doesn't look that good. Before we tackle the stylization beast though, let's look at the animation as is and what doesn't work about it. A good starting point to present what this movie lacks in comparison to others would be to look at the character designs. Like I said, for the past decade or so, Disney began limiting themselves to designing all their characters in the same style, but that doesn't make them inherently bad character designs. If you can get the gist of what a character is all about by just looking at them, you're doing something right. Just because these movies adhere to the same corporate-friendly, boring model layout does not mean the designers are lazy or unskilled when it comes to adding in details that make these designs interesting. Yeah, anyways, now let's look at Wish. This is Asha. Her character design could not be lamer and less distinctive. I mean, look at it next to Mirabelle. Tell me which one looks more interesting. I guess this would be a successful character design in the sense that it conveys everything you need to know about her personality. Nothing! I mean, she wears a purple dress? Oh, look, here, it's the symbol of Rosas. That's kinda cute. Oh, look, it's up here too. And on her earrings. Uh-huh. This design just doesn't feel like there's a soul inside of it, like there is with Mirabelle. It looks like she was designed to be, well, a new Disney princess instead of an actual character in her own movie. And that's not an excuse at all, because they usually really nail the character designs of the princesses. Here, this appearance gives me nothing to work with other than purple. Or is it violet? This bland, cookie-cutter, personality-less look applies to pretty much everyone else in this movie. Tell me one trait about the grandpa just by looking at him, other than he's old. And even then, he doesn't look that old, like I said. He's probably 60! I already mentioned how the goat and star were scientifically designed in a lab to be as cute and marketable as possible. The designs of the friends are kinda interesting, I guess. I like how the color schemes on their outfits represent their dwarf counterparts, plus Gobble being the shortest because he's grumpy is kinda cute. But if you take that out, you're pretty much left with nothing except a group of bland-looking teenagers. Then we have King Magnifico. Now, yes, I know what I said, but my raging bisexuality doesn't blind me to lame character designs, damn it. I mean, his design perfectly fits Chris Pine's voice, I'll give it that. But like, what else is there to say? It's just a guy. He just kind of blends in with everyone else rather than sticking out as someone important. They didn't even give him a crown, which you'd think a king would have. What's worse is that nothing about this design really screams villainous either. Like, it doesn't sell me on the fact that he's supposed to be maniacally evil in the latter half of the movie, like say Jafar. This just looks kinda silly whenever the movie tries to make it look threatening. Compare this to Miguel O'Hara. He's just a dude too, but look at his suit that can simultaneously encapsulate Dark Garfield and Murderous Vampire. And the facial expressions and the look he always has in his eyes. I probably would be terrified of this man if I saw this movie as a kid. Meanwhile, Magnifico's outfit is lame and never changes, and it just looks unfitting and laughable whenever the movie pretends that this is the face we're supposed to be afraid of. And his mannerisms and movements don't really sell it either. None of the character animation in this movie really sells anything for that matter. I've discussed in past videos how subtle movements and animation are super important because it's what gives you a sense that there's an actual person inside of those models. In Wish, every single movement feels either way too exaggerated for the sake of a joke that isn't funny, or just on autopilot with no injection of personality. There's just not much character in the way Asha runs or moves. There's no character in the way any of these characters move. The NPCs, on top of having incredibly stock designs that I'm like 90% sure they just took from the background of Frozen, just feel so lifeless. Which is really bad for a setting that the movie wants to portray as this magical and lively place. They walk with no energy, they don't show expression, or just sort of stand there when the scene needs extras. It feels so unnatural and awkward. Like, look at this scene where the entire city is cheering for Magnifico's entrance. Take out the audio and it just feels like there's no excitement or cheerfulness coming from the crowd. It's just people. What the hell is this guy supposed to be doing? I know it sounds like I'm nitpicking here, but this is a bigger issue than you may think. If you go back and watch the Renaissance movies, it is night and day compared to this. These things are easy to miss, but once once you recognize them, it really gives you a sense of appreciation for the amount of effort and precision that goes into crafting these movies down to the frame. Look at the opening scene of Beauty and the Beast and the dynamic way everyone moves around. Compare it to Wish, which just has a bunch of stock models inserted into the scene which barely show any signs of life at all. And mind you, the film also wants you to care about these extras who don't even feel like they have actual souls. Later in the film, Magnifico destroys the wishes of 3 citizens with boring designs that tell you nothing about them for some vague reasons like I mentioned. So he crushes them and it takes these people's souls away just like Simon. But like, look at the ways they react when this happens. Do you really buy that this absolutely devastated them and made them feel immense pain? That's what is apparently happening here, but they all just stop smiling and look a little tired. Oh honey, what's wrong? Oh, it's nothing, I just have a little heartburn.
My love.
Such sadness.
All my fellas.
In addition to not feeling human, the world surrounding these people just feels really boring. Rosas doesn't inspire a sense of awe or wonder like it's this magical place where dreams come true. It's just a bunch of gray buildings and sidewalks and orange tents. The castle, the architecture, and even the places outside of the city like the forest, none of it feels really inspired. It feels barren and empty, like there's nothing to explore. And it certainly doesn't invoke the feeling classic Disney movies did with their vast open settings and their lively towns full of personality. Even down to more minor details like the way this movie portrays wishes just doesn't give off a feeling of imagination or whimsy. They're just glass balls that float. Cool. And all the wishes are just people doing vague actions in a blank void. What does this guy want to do? Climb Mount Bikini Bottom? Stand in this position and stick a flag into a rock? This lady wants to hold a wheel. It's lame. There's no feeling of wonder here, which is really bad for a movie called Wish. Another thing that really makes these visuals feel off is the use of color. Like I said, the city is just a bunch of gray, and even the other colors that are used here just look really muted and unappealing. The stylization just makes a lot of the colors look less colorful and enticing when it really should make them stick out. It's not always like this, however. I think the movie is actually able to mask this problem during the nighttime scenes. The darker backgrounds complement this style much better in my opinion, and there's actually an appealing use of blues and purples in these scenes. But then when you put the characters back in broad daylight, all the contrasting colors are drowned out and it just makes the movie look poorly rendered. Look at this kitchen. Does this feel like a place of delectable smells and delicious tastes? Do you want to eat these cookies or this white goo like how you want to eat Studio Ghibli food? No, because the way everything is colored here just makes it look so dull. I'm not asking for like an explosion of bright flashing colors in every scene and location, but at least give me something interesting to look at. Give me something other than ugly browns and gray. The presentation of it all does not help matters either. The shot composition and cinematography in this movie are all boring as sin. That applies to most modern Disney movies. The direction is usually nothing special, but it really feels like a detriment to this one in particular. I've already mentioned how this movie doesn't make Rosas feel like an exciting location, and part of that reason is because the opening song is presented in such a bland way. There's no cool use of perspective, no interesting transitions or rhythm to match with the song. It's just characters walking around, then dancing, cut to the next shot, cut to the next shot, cut to the next shot. Just compare this to Encanto, a movie that absolutely excels with interesting looking musical numbers with an exciting sense of rhythm and something interesting going on in every shot. It makes watching these characters go through their routine and into town actually exciting and fun, yet not hyperactive and annoying. And the way it goes hand in hand with the music is just perfect. That sense of life, wonder, and creativity present in songs like Surface Pressure or the one we don't talk about is something Wish simply doesn't have. And it's not just the songs either, every scene is lifeless and stale. Take a look at this dinner scene after Magnifico doesn't grant Oldie's wish. Everyone is super sad as they sit around the table and eat cake. I think it'd be important to showcase the expressions and feelings of the characters in this scene, but instead they hold on this long shot of everyone at the table for 49 seconds as the conversation gets rolling and Asha reveals the truth. It just feels like the wrong angle to view this from, and the fact that the shot lasts for so long and is visually boring makes it lose any kind of impact. They then talk for a bit and it goes back to this angle for like another 30 seconds, and there's just no emotion here. Scenes like this where characters are supposed to feel devastated should leave the audience feeling the same way, but I feel nothing because the presentation is just so dull and doesn't feel like it's putting in any effort to really add something. Oh, and also because the movie is poorly written and I don't care about any of the characters and it's bad. There isn't a single shot in this movie that's creative or interestingly composed. It's all just presented like a standard Disney movie, except worse. A lot of people don't tend to point this out, but the overall way these stylized animated films are presented and filmed is what makes them so special and unique, in addition to the cool art styles. Look at Nimona, a movie that is clearly not of a high enough quality to be released to the public, unlike this. The movie by itself already looks fantastic. The setting is super cool, the character designs are well made and expressive, and the overall movement has a great flow of energy. But admittedly, it still doesn't have the same level of polish or flash as something like Spider-Verse. But it makes up for that in the way everything is shot and put together. There's so much variety in the presentation, from the coolest shit one-shots and action scenes to the more calm and serious moments. You can tell there was so much thought put into where each character should go in each shot and the angle they're viewed from in a way you just can't with Wish. The spinning camera in this shot, the side-to-side here, to just everything in the climax. Movies like this really give you an appreciation for animation as an art form and how there's no limitations on how you can display these things. Movies like Wish put you to sleep with how uninspired each and every shot feels. This entire animation style in general just doesn't feel inspired, and more so something that was tacked on because that's what's popular now. Something that feels like Disney just wanted to get extra points for having different animation without going the extra mile to actually take the time and develop that style into something actually appealing and unique. And the reason why is because the style, what little of it there is, isn't working hand in hand with the actual movie and instead feels like something layered on top of it. That's because there's no sense of, say it with me now, commitment. The movie doesn't want to look like standard Disney CG, but it doesn't want to go all the way to look like other stylized animated films either. This makes it impossible for there to be any visual flair or cool details when the movie can't commit to its style. In fact, it's barely noticeable. I've been editing this video for who knows how long at this point, and it just sort of blends into the back of my mind now. With a movie like Mutant Mayhem, while maybe not a film that I love per se, it's still apparent that this was the look the movie was always intended to have. And because of that, they're able to really run and have fun with it, and add in all these neat little details that are easy to miss, yet so cool when you spot them. In fact, to get my point across even further, I'm going to compliment a movie that I absolutely hate: Earwig and the Witch. For as infamously terrible as this movie deservedly is, the one thing I can give it credit for is that it commits. Ghibli dived headfirst into making a CG movie and did not look back. That was a bad thing, a very, very bad thing. But it's still something you could tell came from artistic, albeit misguided, decisions. Don't get me wrong, Wish is still a much better movie than Earwig, as little as that says, and that movie also did not have a style and narrative working together harmoniously. But the point still stands. I respect a movie that knows what it wants to do, rather than a movie that can't be bothered to put the time into doing something at all. So the ultimate question is, why did the movie turn out looking like this? The obvious answer is that Disney executives were too scared to release a film that looks too different compared to what they're used to, and that's likely true. But there's a bit more to this story. The initial plan was to do this movie in traditional 2D animation like classic Disney movies. You know, a move that would have been perfect for a 100th anniversary film. But they didn't do that, because this movie can't do anything right. In an interview before the film came out, former Disney Animation CCO Jennifer Lee stated that they didn't make the film in 2D because traditional animation has limitations on what you can do on screen. Okay. Look, I'm not an animator or anything, but I think it's safe to say that this statement is pretty damn insulting. We all know the ultimate reason Disney won't do 2D animation anymore is because they don't have any 2D animators left, and the executives don't see it as profitable. But to drag an entire art form down like this is a real slap in the face.
Oh, it's just too limited.
Yeah, sure, just ignore how The Boy and the Heron has immense creativity with its shot and direction, and it looks beautiful, and it made more money than this, and it bulldozed your stupid-ass movie during awards season. Also ignore Suzume, a movie with some of the most breathtaking, huge, amazingly done shots in any recent animated film, and also looks incredible, and also made more money than this, and is also just better. Yeah, this animation technique is just so limited. That's the reason we're not gonna do it. Also, if you're going to gush about how advanced and limitless CGI animation is, maybe show that by making something that isn't the most lame and uninteresting looking animated film ever. And what's sad is that even if Disney doesn't want to or can't do 2D animation anymore, I know they can at least do better stylized animation than this. Shorts like Paperman, made in 2012, nail the 2D, 3D aesthetic perfectly and look absolutely gorgeous. What's stopping you from doing a style like that for Wish? Heck, when this movie was unveiled at D23, they showed footage of it with a dropped frame rate. It doesn't look perfect, but it's something that has a lot of potential, thus did not make it into the final film. It's depressing how this studio won't make an actual stylized animated film in spite of how much their artists seem to want to. These artists are undeniably talented, they have all my respect. It's just sad that their talents are not only going into bad scripts, but being watered down and encouraged to do less when they clearly want to do more. At this point, these executives really need to hurry up and let these creatives do their thing. Because if they don't commit to a new style and cop out with this, then they're gonna fall even farther behind the curve. And that's exactly how the animation of Wish feels. Something that's leagues behind and lacking compared to the contemporaries it wants to be in the same vein as. In an age of this explosion of innovative new art styles, a lot can be said about the look of these films, but you cannot say that any of them look boring. boring. Wish looks boring. Not horrible, but boring. And when you consider how good it could have looked, it's really disappointing how the biggest compliment I can give to this movie is that it doesn't actively hurt my eyes. My ears, on the other hand, every infamous movie is bound to have that one truly embarrassing element that solidifies it as a punching bag. And I think it's safe to say that Wish's true claim to the laughable status it has is undeniably the soundtrack. Look, I'm not really a musical theorist or a theater kid. If you want an actual professional look at these songs, go check out some of the other videos on here. But yeah, even I can tell that from an objective musical and storytelling standpoint, the songs in Wish are not good. I think most people knew something was off when these songs were first released online weekly leading up to the release of the film. But when you look at and listen to this lineup of songs, especially taking into consideration the context of the film in some cases, it really becomes apparent just how bad this soundtrack is. Instead of inspiring a sense of magic or fun or creativity, these songs range from inspiring a sense of confusion or a sense of questioning who the hell wrote and approved these. Well, I have the answer to that first question. Wish's soundtrack was written by Julia Michaels and Benjamin Rice. Michaels is known for writing pop music, and Rice produced the song from Top Gun Maverick. Not the cool one, the lame one from the credits. I don't really want to go after these people. They obviously have respectable talent if they were able to get picked for a project like this. But the question is, why them? What makes their songwriting specifically what they thought would fit the movie best? Why not someone who has worked with Disney before, knows their style and how to make it work, and thus would be a better fit for the movie that's supposed to serve as the 100th anniversary celebration? Or maybe no one else wanted to do it, which makes a lot of sense. And the thing is, these songs don't sound inherently awful. Most of them have nice melodies, albeit nothing spectacular, and they're undeniably well recorded and performed. The songs here really are perfectly adequate. Until you get to the lyrics.
I'll let you live it for free, and I don't even charge you rent. You can turn all your wanting to wishing, no worries and no wonder.
When it comes to the universe, we're all shareholders.
And throw caution to every warning sign. Are you sure that you're not from?
Watch out, world, here I are.
Watch out, world, here I are. Watch out, world, here I are.
For a movie like this, the lyrics are very, and I mean very, important to get right. The songs from the Renaissance movies would not be as famous as they are today if the lyrics weren't as meticulously crafted and natural sounding as they are. So having bad lyrics is more detrimental than you may think. And these lyrics aren't just bad. Oh, they're on a whole nother level. If you're reading these on paper, they'll already sound unnatural, but you really don't understand the sheer awfulness on display here until you sit down and listen to them next to the actual music and scene. That sense of flow and rhythm that makes every iconic Disney song so good is completely flushed down the drain. None of these songs have a word flow that feels right, made worse by how the rhyming isn't satisfying or clever or well integrated in any way. The opening song, Welcome to Rosa, sets the stage flawlessly. This song has two kinds of bad lyrics. The first is the most basic ass rhymes of all time that make it sound like this was written in 2 minutes. It doesn't feel like we're getting to explore a whole new world through this song like we should. Instead, it's words that the lyricists came up with and are now being animated on screen. None of it blends together or feels well thought out. Oh, do you want to dance on beat or have, let's see, be, me, feet? Feet, do you want to have hair touch down to your feet? Pretty sure you can do those things anywhere. How do these things make Rosa special in any way? Let's see, we want the lyric, you've come to the right place. What rhymes with that? Space. You can go to outer space.
I want to go to space!
You see, these lines are not only basic, but it's just listing vague things with no sense of flow or anything tying them together. The next verse is at least a little more coherent, I guess, with Asha explaining how the whole king wishing system works. But because now they have to make lyrics about a specific subject, you can feel the songwriters just give up on making actual rhymes. So they stretch as far as they can for something that maybe sort of rhymes, and it just breaks the flow and sounds off. He has eyes that can glow, but he is, powerful. He is powerful. That rhymes, right?
No! A magic switch, and there you have it, poof, there's your wish.
Okay, now you're not even trying.
It could be you someday, or my Sabasapinos. Oh, I can't wait!
We're 5 minutes in and you've already mentioned your grandpa like 50 times, yet that doesn't distract me from the fact that this doesn't rhyme! The second type of bad lyric is one that's been pointed out many times, and I like to call word vomit. Every song in this movie has a problem where it will just shove in way too many words into a spot in the melody where they just straight up do not fit. A certain songwriter who we'll get into later also has a lot of words in his songs, but the melodies and rhythms are crafted around those words, not behind them. It ends up resulting in such an inconsistent flow where the song flips between saying the lyrics normally and then spewing them out at warp speed. That was like 20 words in 3 seconds. This is the main chorus of the song, and you can barely make it out because Ariana DeBose has to sing these words so fast with no rhythm to match up to, like she's a squirrel or something. You expect people to be able to sing along to this? So this song fails at being memorable, catchy, or setting the stage in a compelling way. It's just there because the movie needs an introductory song, and that's all it is. Disney songs are often separated into a few defining categories that everyone knows. We have these intro songs, the I Want songs, the villain songs, you know the drill. But a good Disney musical is able to make these songs feel compelling and unique while still falling into these categories. Wish's songs fail because most of the time, their one defining feature is that category that they fall into, and sometimes they can't even do that properly. The next number makes for one of the most confused and weirdest feeling scenes in any movie. So Magnifico takes Asha into the room where he keeps the wishes, and then he starts singing about the wishes for some reason. And like, this song isn't actually terrible. Like, if I'm being generous, it's a solid 6 out of 10 maybe. It's just kinda unspecial and forgettable, but at least the lyrics aren't as noticeably bad as the last song. The problem is that this song straight up does not fit with this scene, or these characters, or this plot. So like, the actual context of this scene is that Magnifico and Asha are gushing about how wonderful and amazing these plain blue orbs are. It's a shoddy and pointless reason to burst out into a song like this. But then the glaring problem reveals itself when you take a look at the lyrics. People search for a wonder like you all of their lives. I'd fight for you in ways you can't imagine. Felt this? No, I haven't. I hope it would be alright to stay here beside you. If you're ever feeling like you're lost, I'll come find you. Man, all fronts, there's no ocean I wouldn't swim across to be right by you. This is a fucking love song. I'm not even joking. This is fundamentally written as a love song. Like, read these lyrics. It has love song written all over it. While it's not confirmed, a common theory is that this song was originally going to be used as the love duet for the scrap relationship between Asha and Star that I mentioned earlier. And oh, look at that. Here are some deleted scene storyboards that just so happen to perfectly line up with the lyrics. Golly gee. So when they scrapped that idea and made Star into not a character, they naturally decided to keep the song and insert it here. So what we have is a love song being sung to nobody else by two characters whose connection is not portrayed in any romantic manner in any way. Like, Magnifico is trying to describe how magical the wishes and the dreams they possess are, yet these lyrics that they didn't bother tweaking to fit the scene make it seem like he's singing to a real person he has romantic feelings for. It's weird. The scene isn't telling me that the wishes are oh so amazing or whatever, it's telling me that Magnifico is horny for these glass orbs. I'm pretty sure that's not what the scene was supposed to convey. Then Asha joins in and starts singing to the balls, but now it sounds like the two are singing this love song to each other, which is also very weird and wrong, and I don't like it. Then Asha spots her grandfather's wish because we can't go 5 minutes without mentioning it. We wouldn't want you to forget. So Asha is now singing these very romantically coded lyrics to her grandfather. Did nobody notice how wrong this all feels? Look at their faces. Just no, you can't look at each other that way right after saying there's no ocean I wouldn't swim across to be right by you. Who approved of this? And what's worse is that, like I said, the song itself isn't actually that bad. I actually think it works decently well as a love ballad, but that's not what it's used as. Instead, the song meshes so horribly with the context of this scene to where the only things it's able to convey to the viewer are absolutely not what the movie is going for. So, we currently have a bland intro song and a horribly out-of-place love song. But those are the less important songs. I'm sure they're saving the big guns for that one song. This movie's Let It Go, the one that will steal the Oscar back from Billie Eilish. This Wish is meant to be this movie's headlining song. I mean, not only was it used in the initial trailer, but they thought it was so good they should name an entire movie after it. So did this song deliver?
No, not really.
I mean, like the last, this isn't the worst song I've ever heard. It's not painful to listen to or anything, but it's absurdly dull. When I said these songs could only be defined by what Disney song category they fall into, I was mostly referring to this one. Made obvious by its title, this wish is Asha's I Want song, and that's literally all it is. I never got the sense that people were actually inspired to write this. They just did because this is the part in every classic Disney movie where an I Want song is, so we gotta have one. But it doesn't feel like there was a clear vision for it. Like, yeah, this song is supposed to convey how Asha doesn't like how Magnifico is taking and keeping people's wishes and wants more for these people. But this falls flat, not only for story reasons we'll get into soon, but also because it's just unnaturally thrown into the movie solely because this is where it was mandated to go. Remember that emotionless, sterile dinner scene from earlier? Yeah, this song happens like 10 seconds after that. There's no transition or room to breathe. Asha just runs out of the house and starts singing for no reason. It's not well integrated at all, and this is made worse by how this is only 5 minutes after Asha's conversation with Magnifico where she learns about what he's doing. With other Disney protagonists, their I Want songs are about lifetime desires or struggles they're faced with. This song is basically Asha's introduction to a vague desire that she just now decided that she has. As a result, it feels less like a passionate ballad from the heart and more so just singing about nothing while she walks around for 3 minutes. These lyrics feel like they were written in the most vague sense possible just so the song could be listened to when separated from the film, so it doesn't even feel like it's Asha's song. Half of these lines don't even connect to her non-existent personality or her unclear conflicts and goals. I never knew I needed room to grow. Yeah, I did what I was told when someone told me no. No! What is this lyric referring to? When was this a conflict that you had? Anyways, this song is musically and visually just boring and lame and has the same problem that the opening one did with terrible and inconsistent word flow.
Show them everything I've seen. Open their eyes to all the lies, then would they change their minds like I...
So this was the point in the movie where I officially started to get tired of these songs. We're 30 minutes in and there have already been 3, and the short time between them is only making them less effective, so at least now that the first act is over, they can slow down. Asha's dumb song makes the star come down, the star sheds magic dust on some animals, they start talking, and then they start singing. Are you f***ing serious? It has been 4 minutes and 17 seconds since the previous song, which started like 6 minutes after the song before that. Like, Jesus Christ, if you want to have bad songs, at least have mercy and space them out. This song is called I'm a Star, and it's, how do I put this? One of the worst things I've ever heard in my life. Yeah, this is the worst song in the movie. Shocker, I know. The second this song hits the internet was the exact moment when it seemed like everyone collectively lost hope that this would be a quality feature film. And it's easy to see why. Somehow, this song conveys less than the previous one, and it feels like it was added last minute. It's not only inserted into the film in such an awkward way, but it says and adds absolutely nothing. So all the animals are singing to Asha about how everyone is special and how she's a star. Why? Asha's self-worth wasn't her struggle. That's not what she needed to learn in this situation. The last song was about her wanting more for people in this society. What genuine purpose does this song serve in furthering what was set up in that one? What does being a star have to do with rebelling against Magnifico's society? Why is this in the movie? Why is it so bad? This is like the prime example of how not to write a song. It's annoying, it's pandering, the lyrics are dumb and disconnected from the movie's narrative, and they don't even make sense or just random words being said just because. And it's not even clever or fun or charming in any way. What the hell is that supposed to mean? What are you singing about? Why do half of these words feel so weirdly modern in this song meant for a movie that's supposed to feel like a classic fairy tale? Like, why is it sung like that? Shareholders? You mean a person who buys stocks in a company? Was that really the best word you could think of? Why is the word solar just randomly thrown into the end of the line? That doesn't even rhyme! There's no meaning behind throwing the word system and solar together. Oh, system solar. Like the solar system because there are stars. Get it? Wow, that's such a brilliant line. True lyrical genius. But of course, not as much as this.
I'm a star. Watch out, world, here I are.
Film Twitter misses the point of I'm a star because the animals just gained the ability to speak. Therefore, watch out world, here I are does make sense in context.
Oh, really? Okay, I guess the lyric is perfectly fine now. Forgive me for not understanding the context of this f***ing song.
So they know the word shareholders but still end with here I are? Some know how to speak fluent English more than others. It's not a difficult concept to get the gist of.
Yeah, okay, I guess I just didn't understand this so not so difficult concept. Gah!
More than anything, I'm a Star says that Wish is a movie for babies. And this isn't a case where I'm a stern adult critic who's saying an animated film is made for toddlers just because I don't like it. No, this is literally a movie made for small children and nobody else. You can't watch this scene and tell me that's not who it was specifically geared towards. The god-awful lyrics, the fact that they're being sung by marketable talking animals, the constant movement, the bright colors, the lack of shutting up, the line about balls of gas while we stare at the goat's ass. Like I said, it's pandering. It feels like it's something Family Guy or South Park would do as a parody of a Disney song rather than an actual one. Because, you know, those actually have respect for viewers who aren't too. This, on the other hand, feels like it's actively babying the audience, which is really a problem with all of these songs. It's not just the basic ass rhymes that feel like they were written for a preschool audience, it's how none of them feel creative or thoughtful in conveying what they want to convey. In the other video, I mentioned how these recent Disney movies have a problem with terrible dialogue that obnoxiously hammers in plot points to the audience whom these executives have no confidence in the intelligence of, which is something this movie definitely has. But here it also works its way into the songwriting as well, meaning they're so desperate to explain things or set things up that they feel more like checklists of things to establish rather than songs people actually wanted to write. There's nothing wrong with songs being used to explain ideas or further a plot point, but it's important to mask that intention by doing it in a fun or creative or interesting way. Wish's songs do not do this, so it just feels like they're speaking directly to the audience, making them worse and giving the audience little motive to listen to these outside of the movie. Knowing what I know now is definitely the worst and, dare I say, saddest example of this. Unlike the others, I can hear a killer song in this. The beat and rhythm and the way they're integrated into the scene is actually pretty cool, plus the visuals are at least a little creative. This is easily my second favorite song in the film, and yet I can't bring myself to fully enjoy it or say that it's actually good from a musical perspective. Can you guess why? The purpose of this song is for Asha to explain how Magnifico is evil to her friends and inspire them to start a revolution. I kid you not, the first two lines of this song are, "You've been deceived, Magnifico is not the man he claims to be." Like, way to just spell things out right out of the gate. Then the next line is, "He's more vicious than I could have ever comprehended." Like, now you're just flat out saying what this verse is meant to get across. Let the audience think and figure things out for themselves. Also, the only things Asha has seen Magnifico do at this point in the film is crush some glass orbs and stomp on some wooden dolls. Vicious indeed.
'Cause now I've seen him show his true colors, turn to green.
You are literally just repeating yourself. Once again, these forced lyrics don't flow well in the slightest. In fact, this song probably got hit the worst with the word vomit problem. Words in every other line are just quickly spewed out because the sentence just has too many syllables to fit with the rhythm. So why bother wasting syllables on words like comprehended as opposed to a shorter option? So the friends join in and start singing Down with the King, and as cool as this song is musically, this just doesn't feel satisfying in any way. This song is kicked off because of something that happened in the movie not even 5 minutes ago. I can't buy that all of these guys are already convinced and ready to go against their ruler who treats them well just because this girl is straight up telling them to. Then to make matters even worse, they throw the queen's stupid ass arc into the mixture as well. 5 minutes ago, we got the scene where she goes into Magnifico's man cave and gets mildly concerned. Then in the next scene, Asha sends this mouse to talk to her and tell her to do the right thing. This is the laziest fucking character arc I've ever seen in my life. And now in the next scene, the arc is completed and she's ready to join the rebellion. What great lyrics did they come up with for her?
I've seen too many bad things that I can't keep count.
Too many bad things you can't keep count? What are you talking about? You only saw him play around with evil magic one time. 1 is a very easy number to count. I should know, it's what I'm giving this movie. It really is a tragedy to see a potential banger be tainted with this movie's awful songwriting and obsessive fear that children will get lost or feel alienated if annoyingly on-the-nose lyrics aren't used. And finally, it's time for the moment you've been waiting for. The most infamous, mocked, laughable song in the entire soundtrack, This is the thanks I get. Wait, sorry. This is the thanks I get question mark exclamation point. Sung by our Lord and Savior, Chris Pine. Along with the hype for a new Disney villain came the hype for a new villain song, as that's a big part of what makes the classic villain so iconic in the first place. And they sure did give Magnifico a song. The song has words and music. Oh good lord, where do I begin? Okay, I'm gonna be perfectly honest, but even with all the shit I've given to the soundtrack up to this point, I like this song. I'm willing to admit it, full shame. Magnifico is the one and only character in this movie that I like on some level, so it's probably not all that surprising that this clears every other song for me. I love the way he moves around in this scene and plays up his hot man ego like a true king. And as I said before, Chris Pine has pipes. His vocal performance adds a certain charm to the song that not even I can deny. Paired with a decently catchy rhythm, and yeah, I find myself actually kind of enjoying this song. Far more than any of the others, which are either boring or painful. As much as I hate to admit it, I am a certified this is the thanks I get enjoyer. This is, without a doubt, the only song I could see myself actually listening to when I'm not watching this movie or editing this video. In dear God, any other language besides English. Yeah, much like how I like Magnifico despite how botched his writing was, my enjoyment of This Is the Thanks I Get is purely ironic. Much like the character, there's just a certain appeal in how unfathomably awfully this song is written. Because oh yeah, it's bad. In fact, if we're looking at this from a musical studies perspective, it's probably the second worst song in the film. It's just the perfect combination of horribly unfitting, musically plain, and atrociously written. It falls flat on its face as a song, and it definitely fails as a villain song. And when you listen to it, I think it's obvious as to why. The song is distractingly upbeat and pop sounding. I mean, it's a little catchy, sure, but it absolutely does not work here at all. Comedic or upbeat villain songs can work, but they have to complement the actual demeanor and personality of the villain and fit into the context of the scene. As I mentioned earlier, this song follows up the scene where Magnifico's annoying children ask him for wishes and he gets annoyed, causing him to permanently snap into evil villain mode. So you would think the movie would want to treat this as Magnifico's turn to the dark side. You know, evil, scary. But then he just bursts out into this silly, upbeat, energetic pop song. Like, what? It's an absolute tonal whiplash that ruins the sense of threat this character is supposed to have, and it just feels awkward. Now, yeah, this song is when Magnifico snaps into his egocentric hot man villain phase before going into his actually evil one at the end of the song, so you could argue that the upbeat tone works in that regard. And like, yeah, sure, I guess it fits with that type of personality, but it still doesn't fit with the previous scene or the rest of the movie. Gee, my citizens are annoying. Now I'm gonna sing about how awesome I am for 3 minutes. And then the song retains this poppy-ass melody at the end when the movie is actually trying to make Magnifico seem threatening. It doesn't work. It's so jarring. We're listening to a Katy Perry song while this man rants about how he wants to be a supreme dictator and have complete control over everyone's thoughts and ideas. Just having Chris shout the lyrics is not enough to make this song feel threatening. And those lyrics... More than any other song, this one gives off the impression that the songwriters had no ideas going into writing this and just threw in whatever they felt like. The lyrics here are so bad that it honestly makes the song much more fun to talk about than any of the others. You truly don't understand how far these people will stretch just to get a rhyme, regardless of what's being sung actually makes any sense. I can't help it if Mia's love my face. It's genetics. Yeah, I got these genes from outer space. Outer space? What does that have to do with anything? Is that supposed to be some kind of hot person compliment? Damn, you're looking mighty fine. You must have gotten your genes from outer space. Who says that?
Keep the name, I'm magnificent. I put the eye in omnipotent.
Okay, I'm pretty sure this movie's target demographic does not know what the word omnipotent means. And of course, I'd be stupid not to mention everyone's favorite lyric.
I'll let you live it for free and I don't even charge you rent.
So Magnifico says he lets his citizens live here for free and then follows that up by saying he doesn't charge his citizens rent for living in his kingdom. Those two things mean the same thing. You're saying, I let you live here for free, and I let you live here for free. There's no point in saying it twice. And what makes it worse is that this is such a painfully easy fix. Literally all they needed to do to make this lyric work, or at least work better, is remove the word even and then replace and with a comma. That way, you'd be saying you let them live here for free and then specifying what that means by pausing and saying you don't charge them rent. But here you're just saying you let them live here for free, plus in addition, you don't charge them rent, even though not charging rent is literally what living here for free means. This is basic English. It would have taken 2 seconds to fix. Just... So it's clear that they're struggling to come up with lyrics to fill the entire song, making it all the more evident that they just sort of gave up when it came to writing the chorus. It's just the title of the song repeated 4 times, 13 times total throughout the entire song. This repetition really reminds me of, oh, I don't know, a pop song. There are like 10 million things that rhyme with the word get, and even if there weren't, these people are no strangers to rhymes that don't rhyme, so why is this the only sentence used in the entire damn chorus? Honestly, I feel like I could say a lot more. So much about this song is wrong. Bottom line is that This Is the Thanks I Get is a baffling failure of a villain song that is not threatening or well written and basically ruins this entire character. And this narratively broken piece of abhorrent songwriting is my favorite song in the entire movie. Just let that sink in. I'm not exactly fazed by the studio making a movie with a bad script, but screwing up the musical numbers in the movie that's supposed to be celebrating a studio known for its legendary songs is embarrassing beyond words. Like, what happened here? Well, I do have a theory. What I'm assuming is that the original plan was to make traditional Mencken-style musical numbers in the same vein as the classics, which is what would have made perfect sense for a Disney anniversary film. But you see, coincidentally enough, another Disney film came out during this film's production cycle that Wish seems to want the same success as, Encanto. It's no secret that this film's musical numbers blew up once the movie hit Disney+, and it's easy to see why. We all make fun of Lin-Manuel Miranda, but he is a very talented man with a very specific style of songwriting, a style that he's perfected over the years and, as shown by his popularity, clearly resonates with the public. So seeing how much this popularity helped Encanto, Disney got the idea to chase that audience further with their next musical, which was in production during the height of Encanto's popularity. So when getting someone to make Lin-Manuel Miranda songs for Wish, they made the genius decision of not getting Lin-Manuel Miranda. Instead, what it seems like happened is that they fired the original songwriters and brought these pop musicians on to replicate his style. Or they had these songwriters the whole time, but asked them to pivot once Encanto became such a success. It's certainly a long shot, but when you listen to the soundtrack, the pieces of this theory start to come together. Songs that cram in a lot of words and twisty rhymes, just like Lin's. Songs that are supposed to feel like traditional Disney but are ruined by obnoxious lyrics, almost like they had to be reworked or something. Magnifico singing this poppy, modern-sounding shit instead of a classic-sounding villain song. Like, do you see what I mean? It's clear that something went down in the songwriter's room here, and the outcome is a super awkward meshing of what the songs were supposed to be like and what Disney wants them to be like. The movie can't dedicate itself to either side of the coin, and as a result of this, paired with the god-awful songwriting on its own, this soundtrack feels like a desperate attempt to chase the audience of Encanto's songs. And I don't mean the people who enjoy and appreciate them because they're good, well-written, and catchy pieces of music. No, the audience that Disney wanted to attract is this one.
Every day all the kids wanna hear is Bruno this, Bruno that, it's a new let it go. Oh my God, man, you see what you have done on Hollywood's biggest night, best in all of cinema, magic everywhere, stars everywhere. I need to see Oscars and they are over there. Oh no, we got 3 hoes. These women are the best and they killing all the jokes. So many nominees, I was never nervous. I seen all the envelopes, they behind the curtain.
It's patronizing. Once again, this is all just speculation, but it does give some kind of explanation to the overarching problem of this movie's soundtrack. Wish, overall, has no distinct musical style, other than being bad. These songs don't feel like Lin's modern numbers, but they don't capture the magic of the old ones either. They could have at the very least let this movie have a good soundtrack, but it doesn't because it cannot commit, or make a single decision that doesn't result in making the movie worse and squandering any value it could have had. Which brings us to the biggest problem of all. So I would hope by now that we've established that Wish is a stupid fucking fuck shit It has absolutely no well-written or well-utilized characters, unremarkable animation that lacks the wonder and emotion it should have, and a lineup of songs that were mishandled and each fall flat in one way or a million ways. Every problem you can possibly expect a bad children's movie with no respect for its audience to have, Wish has. But there's a certain area you may have noticed that I've neglected to touch upon up until now. Going back to my original Disney animation video, the final and most important problem I listed as all of these movies having was their terrible handling of themes and messages. The thing about these recent Disney animation movies is that they all try to convey very specific, concrete messages, and they fail. Rather through obnoxiously hammering them in with zero subtlety, not properly fleshing them out so that they work within the context of the story, or just failing to make them interesting enough to carry an entire narrative. The way these movies don't develop or utilize what they're trying to say properly is obviously a problem, and one that more people have started to notice. But I will say, it gives these movies something. A lot of other bad and mediocre kids movies have either the most basic morals ever, or just don't bother with saying anything in favor of loud colors. Try and tell me the theme of Minions: The Rise of Gru, or Despicable Me 4, or The Smurfs. These movies, on the other hand, do at least have deeper messages that you can tell people wanted to share with the world. Despite being butchered by bad writing, the themes are in there, and I ultimately admire these movies for having them. It makes these movies a pinch more respectable than their mid to low tier animated contemporaries, even if the movies are still on the same critical level as those. But the thing that Disney fails to understand is that a good message at heart is not enough to make a movie. You still need to build a well-developed story and characters around it to hook the audience in and give them a reason to be invested in what you're trying to say. None of these movies do that for the reasons I listed in the other video. And when that happens, it really doesn't matter if your movie has something good to say. If it's poorly written or not fun or compelling, why would you want to watch this as opposed to another work that may say something similar but does it in a better way? These movies have admirable messages, but that's kind of all the substance they have. It's another example of Disney just putting in something that should make their movies better received on paper without bothering with the extra material that it takes to make these aspects actually work. You can't expect the audience to like your characters if they're bland and you're given no reason to care about them. You can't expect fans to be pleased with the new Disney villain if said villain is terribly written and sings this crime against nature. And you can't expect a good end product that yields positive results just because you have a good message. So with all that said, you must be wondering, how does Wish handle its central theme? And to answer that question, it doesn't handle its central theme at all. Because it doesn't have one. No, I'm serious. With the other movies, it was at least clear what messages they were going for. Sure, it was clear because most of the movies were unsubtle about them, but it was easy to see what they were trying to say. Wish, on the other hand, does not clearly or competently convey anything. That's not because the movie doesn't supply any themes at all, it does. But none of them matter at all because, once again, this movie can't do the C word, so we end up with all these incomplete themes that the movie will just give up on and never even try to explore or flesh them out properly. It's the same problem as the others, but taken to the point where you can barely tell what the film is even supposed to be about anymore. As we've gone through, this movie had blatantly obvious production issues, with tons of ideas not making it into the final cut. The results of this is a movie that feels clumsily stapled together with no focus, and therefore no main theme to convey. Those potential messages are still in there somewhere, but this movie is so atrociously written and has such a gigantic mountain of problems to the point where any themes they might have been going for get completely lost in translation. Or worse, cancelled out entirely. For starters, we need to look at the way this kingdom functions. A concept this movie introduces early on is that everyone in the kingdom of Rosas gives their wish to Magnifico when they come of age, and then he holds on to them for safekeeping, only granting about one a month. This is actually a really good setup, one that would allow for some really compelling and relevant messages about the control of the government and how it can strip away from people's lives by concentrating power at the top. That's such a good theme, and they f***ed it up. So as we've established, Asha wants Grandpapa Rappa the rapper's wish to be granted, and then Magnifico doesn't grant it. Now, we're supposed to feel bad for Asha and her family, unlike they're being oppressed by an evil soulless tyrant who is preventing their dreams from coming true despite this world being painted as a magical paradise. But here's the thing, or things. Firstly, like I've said, the movie has given us no reason to actually be invested in this guy, and his wish is so vague and non-personal feeling that I really don't care if it's actually granted. Secondly, the movie wants us to think that Magnifico won't grant his wish because grr, evil dictator. But that's actually not what happened. When Asha showed Magnifico the wish, he said he didn't want to grant it because he was fearful of the negative consequences it might yield, a fear that stems from his traumatic past. Remember that? We as the audience have more of a reason to side with Magnifico's perspective than Asha's. The man who's experienced pain before and wants to do what he thinks is best so that none of his citizens have to endure what he did is a much more reasonable character than the bratty child who wants things just because. And it's not like this is some nice guy attitude Magnifico is putting on to make himself come across as more reasonable. He hasn't become evil at this point in the film. Sure, he snaps at Asha a minute later and says he decides what everyone deserves, which is a twisted thing for a person with such power to be saying. But again, we as the audience have reason to believe that this attitude stems from his past and his desire to keep people safe and going too far with it rather than being an oppressive government leader. And also, he only snaps because Asha keeps bugging him and preaching about how the wishes should be granted, even though Magnifico has a more convincing argument than she does. So this understandably makes Magnifico angry, and he then implies that I'll never grant Grandpa's wish ever. Then Asha's all sad and has to tell her family it's all her fault that the wish will never be granted. I think we're supposed to feel bad for them, but like, yes! It is your fault. If an annoying girl barged into my house, asked me for stuff just because, and then questioned me and tell me I'm wrong for not doing things out of fears that resulted from my personal history, I wouldn't want to give her or her grandpa stuff either. 20 minutes in, and the movie has already ruined its core theme by making all the good guys boring and devoid of any reason to care about them, and making the guy who's supposed to be the one we hate the most sympathetic and layered character with genuine reasons to be doing what he's doing. Until, you know, they find a way to ruin that later. Now, you could argue that despite Magnifico's limited wish granting coming from the best of intentions, his actual practices and the way the kingdom functions is ultimately harmful. And sure, I definitely get where that comes from. In this scene, Magnifico says that he won't give the ungranted wishes back, and people come to him because they know they can't make their own dreams come true, instead of putting their faith in him and making them forget their worries. When you put it like that, it's pretty messed up. As if Magnifico is making everyone forget their desires so they'll be happy living in his kingdom the way he wants it forever. That presents another great theme of the false sense of security that the government provides us with while limiting what people can do. I really love that idea, and it gives us an actual reason to side with Asha in this argument. But the problem here is, there is no problem. The movie doesn't show us how Magnifico is negatively impacting the society and the way people think. Look at this opening song. Look at how happy everyone is. And it's not like a false sense of happiness that's not good for these people. No, everyone in this kingdom seems perfectly content. Everyone seems free to do whatever they want. Their leader treats them well and provides them with what they need. No one even has to pay for things. Why would they? Magnifico doesn't charge them rent. There are plenty of movies that present a society that seems like it has everything someone could need, but is ultimately harmful to the way these people function. Look at Transformers 1, another movie where the ruler everyone likes is also the big bad the heroes need to defeat. Sentinel Prime paints a seemingly perfect society and tries to keep the people on his side, but the lies he tells and what he does unbeknownst to his citizens is what forces them to be put in a lower level where they're forced to work harder and suffer. This is what makes us side with the heroes and realize how corrupt this society is. But that doesn't work with Wish because these people are shown to be perfectly content, happy, and prosperous in their current lives. Sure, most of these people don't have their wishes, but it's not like they're suffering without them. The only one who's shown to be negatively affected by not getting his wish is Simon, a character who not even the writers of this movie give a shit about. And even then, the most pain Simon is shown to be in is the fact that he's kind of tired because this movie is for infants and we can't show anybody in any more emotional pain than that. So, we can't believe that Magnifico is doing this out of pure evil prior to him getting possessed by the book, and we can't believe what he's doing is actually harmful to the kingdom given how perfect a society this seems and how everyone is happy with their current lives. This just makes Asha and all the citizens come across as bratty children who are just complaining about not getting whatever the hell they want, especially when these wishes are so vague and simplistic, as I've said. Let's say this movie had an ounce of depth and we were shown, say, people who wish to see their lost lover again or cure the illness of a family member. If that were the case, I'd understand Asha's frustration and be against Magnifico for locking up these deeply personal desires. But I do not give a flying if this lady wants to hold a wheel or this lady wants to float endlessly in the void with a bunch of birds. With these being the wishes we're shown, it feels like they just want Magnifico to give them random things just because. The next day, the people start begging Magnifico for another wish ceremony, and once again, yeah, I'd be pissed at this too. You just had one yesterday, you pieces of shit! So they've now pretty much ruined any message they could have gone for relating to tyrannical governments oppressing people. None of it works when the movie's too shallow and kiddified to present why any of the stuff Magnifico is doing is unreasonable or harmful. And because the movie doesn't present any of that, nor gives us any reason to care about anyone else, he genuinely seems like he's the one who's in the right here more than any of the protagonists. That is, up until this is the thanks I get. Now he's completely 100% evil with no turning back. No more internal conflicts or backstories or reasoning as to what you're doing. Ruler bad, citizens good. Now, am I going to argue that Magnifico is completely sane and in the right after this shift to egomaniac? No, know, but the movie's presentation as to why the government ruler and his oppressive society is bad is now so extreme and unsubtle to the point where I can no longer take it seriously. The problem beyond this being so far removed from his pre-song character is that the movie has now also removed any sort of grounding in reality it had to actually make this message somewhat work. It doesn't feel like a society where everyone's opportunities are being undermined by the ruler and the way he runs things. It's now just a kingdom being ruled by a guy who goes berserk, actively terrorizing everyone because he overdosed on an evil book. It's dumb. It doesn't feel right. I don't get the sense I'm watching a movie that has themes that can be applied to the real world like with the other movies. I feel like I'm watching a nonsensical cartoon made for the audience of Cocomelon. This movie wants to pretend that it's deep and actually has things to say about how the world works, but it's so preoccupied with making these messages as basic and apparent for stupid kids as possible. As a result, things either get soiled by how simplistic they are or exaggerated to the max to the point where any believability in the context of what the film is trying to say is gone. And to make things even worse somehow, even if this movie didn't make Magnifico comically evil in its latter half, its messages of rising up against oppressive government would still be undermined by the resolution. At the end, Magnifico is defeated and his wife now assumes his position of power. Nothing about the structure or hierarchy of this kingdom has changed. You still have a ruler with an equal level of power and status to what Magnifico had. And I'm supposed to believe this is better? Magnifico bad and Queen good? What a nuanced and complex narrative. As I said before, in a previous version, both Magnifico and Amaya were evil, meaning that presumably both would have been overthrown at the end. That would have at least helped further a message about people taking their lives and dreams into their own hands. But no, they still have a ruler and nothing has changed. But don't worry guys, she's nice and stuff. We gave her a character arc. Alright, so that angle is completely in the trash. What other compelling themes do we have? Follow your dreams, the importance of wishes, which the movie says are important because the final version of this movie felt like it was really banking on that message of government oppression in the hopes that people would find it deep and compelling. But now that they ruined it, they have virtually nothing left. Even those vague-ass themes I mentioned are not only basic as sin and not developed in the slightest, but are impossible to latch onto with a cast of characters who have less depth than a puddle and less character than a sock. Whatever, we're almost done. Let's just finish this shit. So Magnifico is now going on a mad rampage, destroying wishes for no reason and whatnot, and he possesses Simon. Oh no. It is here that Asha makes the stunning observation that
The Queen looks scared.
Looks like we've fallen through a trap door!
So Asha and her friends start a revolution and the Queen joins them since she wants to divorce the hottest man alive for some reason. A bunch of running around or some shit happens and then oh no, Magnifico was onto them the whole time. You know what, good for him, my boy don't mess around. He kills Starfy and the wishes and then he chains everyone to the ground and makes it so they can't look at the sky. I'm still not over this. What exactly was his plan here? If he actually won, which he deserves to, by the way, and logically should since he's the strongest person here and has rendered everyone else defenseless and defeated. What was he going to do afterwards? Just leave the people there forever while he gets a coffee or an omelet, maybe? The movie is so committed to making Magnifico evil now that any sense in his plans like what he had originally is completely gone, and now the whole thing is just comical. Oh, but it gets funnier. Magnifico beats Asha easily and she's looking down at everyone struggling as they give up all hope. She then says this.
We are stars.
And then it happens. Asha starts singing the lame-ass I Want song from earlier. And the people hear her somehow. They're down on the ground and she's like 500 feet in the air, what the fuck? And then guess what? They all start singing, which lights up their hearts and weakens Magnifico. Do you guys remember when I talked about Belle? Do you remember that incredible climax where Suzu sings A Million Miles Away as she realizes the power of true kindness, inspiring everyone to light up their hearts and sing along with her in this gorgeously animated and sounding sequence? One of the best and most powerful in recent animated cinema. Yeah, so this is that, except with an infinitely worse song, worse animation, less reasoning as to why this is happening, and sung by characters nobody cares about. This is supposed to be the big, powerful climax of the movie. This is meant to be the grand display of the visual and emotional spectacle that Wish offers, and it's just a bunch of stupid singing for no reason. And the real kicker, the thing that makes this climax an absolute joke, is that unlike in Belle, this singing magically solves every single problem. It frees the people from the ground, it frees Star from Magnifico, it makes all the wishes come back to life, and then for no reason at all, it sucks Magnifico into his staff. Golly gee, it sure is super convenient that literally everything got magically solved through the power of song. When I said Wish felt like a parody of Disney movies rather than a real one, this is exactly the kind of stuff I was referring to. It's not only a lazy way to just fix everything in the span of 2 minutes, but it makes the film come across like it doesn't take its world, its stakes, or its audience seriously. But everyone gets their wishes back and is happy. Wow, they deserved it. They fought so hard. Even Simon, the character surely everyone was invested in, comes back and gets a redemption in the span of 2 seconds, but not Magnifico. Send him to the dungeon because he's a bad guy. Cool, awesome, great. Then we get to the epilogue scene, which is here for no narrative reason other than the movie needing an epilogue scene. Literally all it is just characters standing around doing nothing while the movie wraps up any loose ends through lazily written dialogue. Everyone in town realizes that Magnifico was always bad and they never needed him. How do I know this?
We never needed Magnifico.
The Queen is now the one in power, and as you can see, she is making a bunch of drastic changes for the better throughout the kingdom, such as how people are free to walk around and talk, this guy juggling, Grandpappy plays the lute, and these people are dancing. The way the kingdom is presented here is practically indistinguishable from how it's presented in the opening. It's almost like Magnifico had already built a society where everyone was happy and could pretty much do anything they wanted, and overthrowing him and giving everyone wishes changed nothing, and the wishes this movie presents are unimaginative and lame, and the animators are being limited so much to the point where they can't show anything that isn't people standing in open space and talking. Look, that guy is dressed like Peter Pan. Exactly like Peter Pan. And his name is Peter. And he wants to fly. Annoying Goat says without any prompting or reason that he dreams of Utopia Metropolis where all mammals are equal and wear clothes. You know, these references are great, but I don't think they're obvious enough. Can you put up more giant arrows pointing to them, please? Oh man, it's gonna be some kind of, Zootopia. Then Star gives Asha a magic wand so she can do magic stuff and be everyone's fairy godmother. Now I guess nobody has to work to make their wishes a reality because Asha can do the magic for them. Yay! I didn't think it was possible for this movie to fuck up a message as simple as make your own dreams come true, but they did it! Oh no, Star has to leave and go back to the sky, but never mind, he's actually not leaving right now because this movie cannot commit to anything for 5 fucking seconds. Then fireworks and Mickey Mouse and Star flies over the castle to make the Disney logo. Oh my god, guys, that's so clever! Isn't that so clever, guys? Do you like our movie now? No? Here's pictures of every Disney animation movie in history over the credits. The film has done nothing to earn this or make itself feel like a tribute to the studio in any way, but hey, look, it's here. Isn't that so novel of us? Do you like our movie now? Please? So there we have Bob Iger and Jennifer Lee's Fecal Matter. Honest to God, this is genuinely one of the worst major studio animated films of all time. It's down there for sure. It manages to either fall embarrassingly short or completely flat on its face in every single category. It's so fundamentally broken to the point where I almost can't believe major Hollywood studio executives thought this would pass as a finalized product. But you know what? I've been pretty negative throughout this entire painful endeavor. Maybe there's something I'm just not seeing. Maybe there is some kind of value deep within the mountain of shit this movie presents. Maybe I'll even hear something that counters every bad thing I've said about this movie and makes me realize I wasn't being fair. Let's take a look at some positive views on this movie, shall we?
I know that this is considered a controversial move, and I am especially aware of all the swords that are pointed at me for even implying that Wish is a good movie. But if you could set that aside, allow me to explain. I understand that the story could have been much better handled, but even with a few flaws, that doesn't take away what it did good that makes these films enjoyable experiences on their own, including the breathtaking animation,
no.
Charming characters that add some cute humor,
Absolutely not.
and a strong soundtrack that features some memorable songs. And yet, even with the heart they can deliver, another unfortunate similarity they have was how there were some loud hate campaigns on social media for both. Even long before the films were released, people were ready to throw all their anger and hatred towards them as if Ember or Asha said something anti-Semitic. But in reality, the rage is because they're from Disney and that they're not perfect.
Wait, play that again.
But in reality, the rage is because they're from Disney and that they're not perfect.
Are you kidding me? That's your reason as to why people think Wish is bad? People hate it because it's from Disney? Hundreds of online critics have pointed out what's wrong with this movie. The animation, the characters, the songs, the everything. And you're gonna sit here and tell me that all of this, all of the vitriol and hate towards this garbage movie can be chalked up to it's because it's from Disney and it's not perfect. All of this stuff is obsolete just because the movie has the Disney logo in front of it. That's why people hate it. Are you fucking serious? This is a reprehensible load of bile that gets next to nothing correct as a film. It is insulting that they thought this was acceptable enough to release, let alone a good enough product that people were going to enjoy, let alone good enough to serve as a centennial celebration of the entire company, let alone good enough to stand up against literally any other animated film that year, including Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse and The Boy and the Heron. And this is the movie they turned in? But excuse me, the reason people don't like it is because it's from Disney and they're not being fair. Maybe if you look deeper, you'll see that no, you cannot look deeper because there is nothing there. No magic, no personality, no depth, nothing. It is a shallow movie made for 3-year-olds and you're giving it a pass just because it's from Disney and the public has treated it unfairly after its release.
But at least it's not the worst movie ever.
Oh yeah, great point. That fact makes the movie so much better. It may be a steaming pile of dog shit, but gee guys, at least it's better than Food Fight, Megamind versus the Doom Syndicate, and what else is Wish better than? Dog Tanning and the Three Muskhounds. What an achievement. Give them a pat on the back, a sticker, and an 8 out of 10 for that monumental accomplishment. I'm just so happy that the biggest and most renowned animation studio of all time, backed by millions of dollars, and the biggest media corporation in the world, managed to make a movie that is marginally better than Dog Town.
Truth is, I don't think people understood what it was I was doing at Schaefer. I wasn't there to conduct. Any fucking moron can wave his arms and keep people in tempo. I was there to push people beyond what's expected of them. I believe that is an absolute necessity. Otherwise, we're depriving the world of the next Louis Armstrong, the next Charlie Parker. So imagine if Jones had just said, well, that's okay, Charlie. That was all right. Good job. But Charlie thinks to himself, well, shit, I did do a pretty good job. End of story. No bird. That to me is an absolute tragedy. But that's just what the world wants now. There are no 2 words in the English language more harmful than good job.
Wish is a movie that not only represents everything I hate in a feature film, but everything I feared was going to happen years ago when I noticed the studio was losing their edge. Back then, I noticed the rushed stories, repetitive animation style, characters that lacked proper development, but I also noticed that I was the only one who thought this way. And while it's understandable and fine, not everyone is me, it made me kind of worried. Worried that since Disney already had the recognition and praise, they wouldn't see the need to change. If people are giving praise praised to rush products for having impressive animation and good messages on paper, and they're still making money, why would Disney need to push for more? Push for something better, or more unique, or innovative? The main reason above everything else behind this studio falling off their game is because we all let them become too comfortable with themselves and their formula. They rode the wave of success they had back in the 2010s, back when they made movies that could be enjoyed by everybody and understandably got praise and attention. But they never bothered to evolve because why should they? And as a result of that, they started to devolve into this pitiful era we have on display. But it didn't matter to them because they still got positive reviews and enough at the box office to be considered successful. But the cracks were showing, and I knew if this wave of praise for projects that were rushed to meet a quota continued, things were just going to get worse and worse until they made a massive mistake that made everyone aware that this studio was falling apart. And Wish is that mistake. This movie took every single wrong path it could have during its production. From the cut ideas to the watered down animation style to the hiring of these songwriters, it doesn't feel like the higher-ups had any sort of respect for their audience and what they were putting out, stripping down and outright ruining all the work put in by hundreds of undeniably talented people. It is the absolute amalgamation of everything wrong with this studio's new direction, and heck, just everything wrong with mainstream American animation in general. Loud, obnoxious, kiddified, shallow, it feels more like an insult than a celebration. An insult to the legacy of the studio that made it, and an insult to every single person who watched it. And if you're gonna come to this movie's defense by saying that it's for kids and they'll probably at least enjoy it, mind you that the funny thing about children is that they grow up. And once they do and gain a better understanding of the world around them and the media they consume, most of them are probably going to realize that, yeah, this sucks. It is a pathetic excuse of a movie that has almost nothing unironically enjoyable to offer and not even anything to say, which is at least a redeeming factor of the other movies. But Wish is an empty void of noise and stupidity that says and is about nothing. And people recognized that. Nearly everyone saw that what they were watching was bad. As you probably know, Wish was the first Disney animated movie in almost 2 decades to garner negative critic scores, and it also massively underperformed at the box office. The world knew that this thing was ass, and they didn't want it. And if this reception truly means anything, it means that the jig is finally up. It was debatable before, but it's official now. Walt Disney Animation Studios is in a new dark age. The truth is that Disney doesn't care about what they put out anymore. As long as it looks competent enough and can be considered better than Dog Tanyan and the Three Muskhounds, it passes. There's no need to give people time, no need to let them be creative, no need to do anything special. The only thing that matters now is meeting a concrete release date. A few months after Wish bombed, Disney announced that a Moana 2 would be coming to theaters a mere 9 months later. Turns out it was a scrapped TV series that they were repurposing into a movie at the literal last minute. And this is what solidified it to me. Solidified that quality does not matter to this studio anymore. They've admitted defeat. They flat out gave up. They stitched together a cheap quote-unquote movie in a couple months that they knew would make money because Moana is popular without any thought as to if this was the best possible decision. And given their future slate of mostly sequels, it feels like this is kinda gonna be the new norm now. But while Disney refuses to evolve and move on, the rest of the industry is continuing without them. As this piece of shit gasps for air, animation as an art form has been seeing some of its most exciting times and highest peaks in terms of quality throughout these past few years. Other American studios are taking advantage of the stylized animation trend with far more confidence and releasing ambitious, creative, inspiring, heartfelt movies that can be enjoyed by anyone. And that's not even mentioning the plethora of fantastic films from the non-mainstream market and the major W's they've been getting, such as the Oscar wins for Pinocchio, Boy and the Heron, and Flow. Or how about the tremendous box office of movies like Suzume or Neja 2? Animation is such a wondrous medium, and it warms my heart to see all the incredible works that we've been blessed with in recent years by both the big studios as well as the smaller ones. The works that are unique, boundary pushing, actually say things, and serve as an inspiration for children and adults alike. And with these films garnering the praise and hopefully attention they deserve, while Wish Forever remains an embarrassing failure, I think the animation industry is gonna move in the right direction with or without this studio. If they want to make stale, creatively bankrupt movies for children, then fine. Let's all just stop giving them money, stop stop giving them Oscars and just let them derp around on the corner while others do actually innovative and meaningful things with the medium. They've given us plenty of great movies, both old and new, but if they're not going to move forward, then it's time for us to move on from them. And with this video finally done, I think it's time to move on from Wish. As fun as it is to shit on, I'd rather focus my efforts onto movies I actually want people to see, and movies that come from studios that actually care. I speak for many when I say that I don't want a studio that has as little faith in their audience as Disney does, nor movies as bad and meaningless as this. I want movies that are as ambitious and innovative as the creators want them to be. Movies that are full of genuine heart and things to say. Movies that, even if not flawless, you can at least see the passion oozing out of every corner rather than corporateness and cynicism. Movies whose goals are not to make $1 billion or to meet a Thanksgiving release date, but to make creative, original, inspiring art and bring a little light into the world. At least, that's what I want. Don't you?
Tell me, would you wait for me? Baby, I'm a rolling stone. I got a lot in right in me, but I don't wanna say this wrong. Tell me, would you stay with me? Baby, we could make this home. You should run away with me, even if you're better off alone. I like that you like me. I kissed your lips, you got good taste. I like that you like me. I can close my eyes and draw your face. If you take this chance, I'll give you oxygen to breathe me in, but I'll say sorry in advance. My head's a mess. It's like that every day, and I'll try my best. It sounds cliche, but tell me, would you wait for me? Baby, I'm a rolling stone. I got a lot in writing, but I don't wanna say this wrong. Tell me, would you stay with me? Baby, we could make this home. You should run away with me, even if you're better off alone. Your name is a neon light in the sky when darkness surrounds us. Let's leave this town, get married, go to Vegas and create nostalgia. Tell me, will you save this dance? I feel my knees get weak beneath me. I know this night might be your last. My head's a mess. It's like that every day, and I'll try my best. It sounds cliche, but tell me, would you wait for me? Baby, I'm a rolling stone. I got a lot in writing, but I don't wanna say this wrong. Tell me, would you stay with